On my right, please, some sound check.
Mic 1, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Endelea kama dakika 30 seconds. Endelea tu.
Sisi tuendelee.
Wewe endelea tu kuongea.
Mic check 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, mic check. Maureen Kemuto, 1, 2, 1, 2.
The die is cast.
Tunajua.
Mic check 1 2 1 2 3 4 5.
Yes. Mtu mmoja avae kanza hapo. Basically that's it.
You tiende amuno. I vote yes. When I expect a semi, I vote no.
No, the moment you say you vote no, you are home.
It's raided.
Yeah. Yeah? All right, all eyes on the bicameral Houses of Parliament as they debate on either adopting or rejecting the Building Bridges Initiative BBI. Senate has adjourned the voting to 11th of May this year, though voting is still going on in the National Assembly. Those calling for the amendment say some of the BBI provisions are unconstitutional, hence their removal. A debate that has led to the germination of a bitter orange. Stern supporters of the Orange Party now feeling its sourness. My name is Frederick Muitediri, sitting in for Lincoln Wambugu, and our sign language interpreters tonight are Michael Maidya and Teresia Washira. We'll start the show by asking you, do you remember this bite by the minority leader in the Senate, James Orengo?
That sometimes revolutions eat their own children. Yes. Yeah. Government eats their own people. This government is going to punish you more than they will punish me. I'm telling you, in another 1 year, you will be crying in my office to come and represent you. I know, I can tell you. I've appeared for President Kibaki when he was in the opposition about laws which were made here. I've appeared for President Uhuru and Vice President Ruto when Kanu was going away. When Kibaki was taking away his members and making them ministers, I went to court on their behalf. But now that they're in power, they are forgetting. And power when power gets into your head, I can tell you, you will never remember that one day there's a bigger power, almighty, that will deal with you.
Having covered politics for some time now, believe you me, I remember that day so well. Now speak to us and share your feedback through our SMS line that is on 111 444 111 or our social media handles that is at Switch TV Kenya or at Fred Mwitiri. Remember to use the hashtag tipping point so we could keep this conversation interactive as possible. Our guest tonight will definitely respond to your comments and answer your questions. They are governance expert and County Governance Watch Executive Director Kevin Osido, lawyer and political analyst Nordin Kagai, and politician Maureen Mora. We start off, Nordin. Yeah. You remember when Senator James Orengo said those words? You remember?
Yes.
What comes to mind today? Because he's facing the very same thing that he said a few years ago.
He has been eaten by his own prophecy. His own prophecy has come to eat him.
Yes.
You see, the sad reality is that what he was talking about, power can corrupt.
Yes.
It has gotten to a point. You see, the problem is there is a tussle in the party. There is some succession politics that is awakening. You know, we are going towards a general election 2022, and I'm sure
to succeed the party leader.
Yes, and I'm also sure, aside from that, he has ambitions. He's been a senator twice. You have a governor whose term is over. Why not take a stab at the governorship? You see, but now that if that is not in line with what the party leader would want, that will bring a tussle.
Ken,
No.
in this whole picture, we are seeing very astute lawyers.
Yes.
Guys who've been at it. Guys who would have died for ODM.
Yeah.
Who can die for ODM? They are the hot place and the hot seat they never thought would come to them. What do you make of this?
What comes to my mind is a place of mentorship, leadership and mentorship. If the party leader would have been very strategic to identify young, vibrant, progressive individuals, both men and women in the party, and groomed them, and given them that vision that one day there will be no I, and that there would be need for somebody to come over and move on with this particular, aspirations and dreams of what ODM or whatever party has been fighting for, then these kind of machinations and blackmail would not therefore exist. But they exist.
Are you saying it's blackmail?
This is pure blackmail.
What do you mean?
Because if your party has internal structures,
Yes.
just go and say, I have interests. Because remember, even when we look at the kind of names that have come up to declare, that they want to run for office, especially when the same party, advertised for candidates, the people who are loudest now did not make their submissions, despite the fact that my good friend Wakili says that he has ambitions to be governor, but there is a much more higher seat, that you can actually go for. And if you fail, I remember the gentleman who is speaking has also tried it in 1997 under SDP. And so he knows what that means. So what therefore comes to my mind purely is a lack of proper mentorship. I don't think that the party leader and other leaders within this particular party that we're talking about have been very categorical and very open around and about, succession within the party. And you can see that all through, even in all our political parties. Jubilee is not exempted because it's also going through a similar thing.
It's
where you
dead.
have
They have said enough times.
Exactly. So that's what comes to my mind.
Thank you. Maureen, karibu sana to Switch TV. Have you ever been here?
Sana. Yes, I have before.
You've been here?
Yes.
Not under my seat.
And Joel Chacha.
Not with Joel Chacha. Very well.
Yes,
Now,
thank you.
Maureen, not only James Orengo, but we have seen Otendo, somebody who was in 2017, he was in court representing ODM, representing Baba, at the highest court of the country, the apex of the country. And here he is, he's been chucked out of the Justice Committee. What do you make of all this?
First of all, for me, I would say, as a country, we are undergoing through a phase of misplaced priorities, right from our leadership, right from the executive, up to, you know, up to the county levels, up to the constituency levels, and up to the ward levels.
Yep.
In form of representative, we're undergoing misplaced priorities. Why? Before we even address the Otiende Amolo issue, we have pertinent issues affecting our nation,
Yep.
affecting our people, like health issues. My friend, we are losing a lot of lives to COVID-19 pandemic that has caused a storm all over the world. Other African countries are looking at how they will now focus on coming up with vaccines made from in-house, you know, made from their own country to save on the cost and to increase on the rates at which we're going to reduce the spread of COVID. While we are busy looking at, bringing in laws that are not even favorable for Wanjiko. We have,
Are you talking about BBI?
when we talk about BBI, when we talk about
You're saying
BBI,
BBI, but you don't want to touch on BBI.
yes, so back to your question. If we look at Otiende Amolo
Yeah.
as a politician and as an ardent supporter of ODM for many years, I would say probably, and also as a legal, a member of the legal council, you know, I would say he would have had best interests of Kenyans at heart at the beginning when it comes to BBI and the process of building bridges initiative and, you know, coming up with policies that will ensure we have an equitable equitable distribution of resources, we have a fair and just system, you know, we have a system that advocates for Wanjiko, we have the reducible minimum, returns for Wanjiko being catered in, and along the way, the whole concept, changed meaning. It got quashed with a lot of, I'd term it as garbage, because yes, it's unnecessary for the Wanjiko, for the common Kenyan. So I think even for him, he feels betrayed. For him, and I'm sure part of the ODM fraternity feel betrayed, because what they wanted to negotiate for, the common good of the country, in terms of, uniting Kenyans, right from central to Nyanza to eastern to western, coming up with a Kenya where every Kenyan feels like they belong, where there's free and fair distribution of resources, is not what he's seeing as the outcome of the document being tabled.
Hold that thought, because you're talking about Wanjiko, who has not been represented as much as we would want, as much as Kenyans would want. And it brings me to this point. BBI, today in Parliament. Whichever way the House votes tonight, however, the bill will still go on for a referendum. This is according to Article 255 of the amendment of the Constitution. If Parliament passes the bill, it shall be submitted to the President for assent in accordance to Article 256, Clause 4 and Clause 5. That states the President shall, before assenting to the bill, request the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to conduct within 90 days a national referendum for approval of the bill. On the flip side, according to Article 257, Clause 10, if either House of Parliament fails to pass the bill or the bill relates to a matter specified in Article 255(1), the proposed amendment shall be submitted to the people in a referendum. And tonight, the Parliament is voting on the BBI bill. We'll be bringing you the outcomes of the votes in just a short while. If my director can show us just what is happening in Parliament. Nudin, because you are the legal mind here.
Yeah.
There are so many questions before we even go to the voting of this bill.
Yeah.
Are we voting in an illegal document? Because 34 actually counties had an erroneous bill.
Yeah.
Are we voting in a bill that somebody will go to court and say this is illegal?
From the onset, I would say the way we started the process, according to some of us, the way the process was started, there were instances of illegalities. For example, signature collections. There were issues of coercion. There were issues of provincial administration officers doing that exercise.
Yeah.
That negates the issue of popular initiative. And then there's the issue of a bribe to the MCAs for a car grant that is a bribe. So we are solving corruption in BBI, but the journey to prosperity starts with corruption. You realize? So there are constitutional issues that one can go to court and seek redress for. Among them is also the constituencies in the BBI, for example, because review of boundaries is
Done by the ABC.
according to the Constitution. So there is no way you can sit down and decide 20-something counties will get additional constituencies, and the rest won't get.
Let me ask you this question, because people keep on asking, and because you are a lawyer.
Yeah.
Nudin, if we want to change that particular article of the Constitution, that IBC is supposed to do that which is changing and bringing in new constituencies, aren't we supposed to have a bill that can change that?
Yeah.
Isn't that what we are doing through the BBI?
But you know, it needs to be the people who want to change that, not the political class. So who is that serving? Is it the interest of the political class or the interest of the people? Is there any Kenyan who out there said we want the IBC to stop doing the review of the boundaries? Or is it the political class? That is the question we're asking. So those are questions like Otiende Omolo and Orengo are asking, which are legal questions. And you see, for some, we'll brush them off, because the sad reality is that as today, people are more or less like, I vote yes, for no reason.
It's LDM, Jubilee, Tangatanga.
And
That's what they're saying in
and
Parliament.
do you know why? The problem is that our parties in Kenya are owned by individuals. So those who get into office are panel beaten into a certain political party line. That is why you always told, respect the party leader. So you have no vision of your own. You have no mind of your own.
So even when they are wrong.
Exactly. So you represent me, but before you think about me, you think about your party leader. That is why when you look at our political parties, most of them prescribe their ideals and policies from the party leader. So when he dies or when she dies, what happens to the party?
What happens to the party? Now, ODM, let me get you, Ken, let me get you back to this conversation.
Yes.
And I'm asking, and he's raising very important questions, that this is not from Wanjiko.
Okay.
These are two leaders who sat down one day and decided, let's greet each other, let's formulate something. This is the BBI.
Yeah.
And now we are seeing all parliamentarians saying, yes, we want a new bill. But there are some articles of that bill that are illegal. Have we pushed ourselves? Do we really need this BBI?
Kenya, from the genesis of the BBI process, needed BBI like yesterday. You know why? Because remember that our elections are very antagonistic. Every time we have to lose lives for people to ascend to power, I don't think, in my view, it has to get to that level. One life is too much for any election. As at the time when all these things were happening in 2017, without going into the details of our historical political processes and elections, part of this country was calling secessions.
I remember.
People were saying,
Costarians.
yeah, even Nyanza, they were saying, go with
but
your
it's the
country.
leaders, not the people. It's the leaders.
We are getting there. The leaders called for
Secession.
for secession. They called for every Wednesday. In fact, it was always Wednesday mandamano.
Yes, I remember.
Tear gas.
And
And
yes,
tear
tear
gas.
gas Wednesday, exactly.
Yes,
And you
tear
see,
gas Wednesday.
it is not just the leaders who are getting into the streets. It was people and their leaders, you know. And we can, I'm sure you have videos and you have stories about how this went.
Absolutely.
And when the two leaders realized that we are the major reason why people are dying because of our elections, we are the major reason why certain parts of our country, you know, are inaccessible, because like Osido, it would take me a girlfriend from Central to access certain parts of Central. And the same is true. To such, like, I'm sure you'd not go to Nyanza, you know. You go
Yeah,
to
because of
Costa.
where I come from.
What I'm saying, therefore, is that
I'm good. They will not. They will not go.
there are parts of this country that would therefore not would not.
They didn't feel
access.
part of the
yes,
government.
Exactly. And so when they ultimately realized that we need to call this to a stop, they sat, and I remember that during the Bomas process, the president took us through how they went through.
I hope that is not on air. Oh, they're reminding us about the bombers.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in a nutshell,
Yes.
Kenya needed a process or something for us to call ourselves to order, you know, and say, hush, ladies and gentlemen, we must stop at some point. And then the handshake came, and it metamorphosized into so many things. You know, we had the steering committee, the task force that was put in place. People made a lot of noise, you know. Young people, I remember going to the BBI rather task force and saying, the youth are not represented. And the late Mheshimiwa Yusuf Haji gave us two very long hearings, 80 minutes, 40 minutes for each of the two meetings that we held.
For the young people.
And then ultimately said, can you put your people together? can you give us memoranda documents? Let's read what the young people are saying. And that happened. So you realize that the promoters of the BBI, the amendment bill, which is where we are at right now,
yes,
have been very categorical. And ultimately, all this boils down from what was then called the 9-point agenda. And those 9-point agenda items were identified as the 9 key issues that divide Kenyans. And electoral reforms was part of it. So the kind of conversation that we are having right now, in my way from a political economy analysis perspective, is trying to look at who are the gainers and who are the losers from this BBI process. And the gainers will be very clear around, promoting the document, looking at the gaps and how we can be able to fill them, as opposed to the losers who will be always saying, this is unconstitutional, without giving recommendations or proposals on how we can be able to...
Let me cut you short.
Allow
me to cut you short.
Please do.
Ken,
please.
Why would we be having, when we said we are bringing everyone on board?
Sure.
We said we are bringing everyone on board. But today, we know how things are. There's one part of Jubilee that feels it's not part of that process. Why couldn't we bring them? Why are we continuing on with the BBI while we are leaving part of it? And let me ask Maureen that question. Why should we leave a certain part of the political class, and yet we are saying the BBI was supposed to bring people together?
Exactly. That is a very important issue, because even if you look at the role that Parliament has played in the BBI process, Parliament forms a representation of leaders who are sent to represent the Kenyans to, come up with policies that will be for the common good of the Kenyan. So if we have the members of Parliament sent by their people, by their voters, to go and represent them on certain issues, and then they are left out on issues that are supposed to affect the people they've been sent to represent. In the first place, it means we're talking about a process that is bloated. Then here we are talking about a process that only invited a few to come and dine and wine and come up with, changes and amendments to the 2010 Constitution, which was promulgated in 2010. And in my opinion, allow me to say, I would rather we focus on the process of implementing the 2010 Constitution, the pros and cons, how far we have come. Because this same 2010 Constitution was voted in by the common man who has sent these members of Parliament to represent them in Parliament. So why don't we look at this Constitution that was voted in, in large numbers by the common man, then we address the pros and cons. We have the national NCIC that was put in place to implement the 2010 Constitution. In my opinion and my view, I would be of the opinion that the government, or rather through the president, would have held a special meeting with the NCIC members, then allow them to come up with recommendations on how far the 2010 Constitution has come, what needs to be added, what needs to be amended, what needs to be changed, what is yet to be implemented, the challenges being faced during the implementation process, the challenges the counties are going through in terms of distribution of resources. That is what you could be looking at. The challenges the constituencies are going through in terms of distribution of resources, if we're to come to equity. That is what we could be looking at right now. Then we could be coming up with recommendations that will help better the 2010 Constitution, and while at it, then build the initiatives that we are meant to build through coming up with now a more concrete, improvement of the 2010 Constitution.
Yes. And
not a blotched document meant to alter, and change all the important, milestones we've struggled to come as Kenyans towards coming up with.
Nurdin, it seems you'll be the ile maji tunasema ya kusawazisha. Do you agree that the BBI process was a fraud? We should have followed the process that Maureen is giving us. You'll give us those views in a short while. We are taking a short break. We'll be back with more in a short while on 111 444 111. Talk to us. We'll be reading your SMSs when we come back. All right, welcome back to Tipping Point. My name is Frederick Muitiriri. Yesterday night, this statement was said by the president and his counterpart, that is ODM leader Raila Odinga. We are making a joint appeal to members of the National Assembly and the Senate to join the 3.1 million Kenyans who supported the bill and the 44 county assemblies who approved it in upholding what represent the hopes and aspirations of all those who participated in various public forums seeking long-term solutions to this country's problems. That is Raila Odinga, the ODM party leader, and of course, Jubilee party leader, Uhuru Kenyatta. And right about time, let's just listen into what is happening in Parliament as the voting for the BBI bill continues.
Sophia Abdi. Nu Junet Sheikh.
What is happening? People cannot hear.
Nyaga Beatrice Nkava.
People cannot hear. What is that? People can't hear.
Nyaga Beatrice Nkava. Nyaga John Mushiri. Nyamai Rachel Kaki. Nyamita Mark Ogola. Nyamoko Josh Nyamache. Nyenze Edith Fevi. Nikal James Wambora. Nyoro Samson Dindi. Zambia Dhudias Kidhua. Zengu Paul Musimi. Zioka Erastus Kivazu.
Their eye. I, Purity Wangoi Ngirishi, MP Kirinyaga County, in full recognition of their duty to me and what they have said I should do, I vote no.
Mr. Speaker, I, Joash Nyamache Nyamoko, representing the good people of North Mogrango constituency in Nyamira County, I vote yes.
Honorable Speaker, mimi Junet Mohamed, kwa niaba ya wakazi wa Suna Mashariki na kwa niaba ya ODM na kwa niaba ya baba napiga ndio.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I, Beatrice Nkadha Nyaga, on behalf of the people of the Tharaka-Nithi County who have not gotten a constituency, I say no, no, no.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am Mary Wamaua Joroge, Member of Parliament, Maragua constituency. I vote yes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I, Sophia Abdi Noor, Member of Parliament for Ijara.
Lovely. It's always beautiful to follow our politicians when they are trying to say they are voting for us.
Yeah.
Sure.
When they are voting for us, and sometimes it's their personal gains.
Yes.
We know them because we've been here and we've been watching them.
Yeah.
Some of, Ken, some of, we call them Tanga MPs, they have voted yes. Some of them is Kimani Ngonjiri. they say the anointed one for the Tanga movement.
Yes.
And the other one is Mwashetani. They are voting yes. What do you make of this? Are they seeing the light?
They are actually seeing the light.
I knew you'd say that. Again.
No, not for anything. It's purely because over
Yes.
time, as we continue to dissect the BBI and also look at what this means for our next elections, the citizens are also speaking. I remember the MCAs at the grassroots are not silent because these are the next MPs. You know, so somebody who's been, for example, an MC at the county assembly level is aiming to the next level and he's saying, how come I voted for this document and our party is for it and our, you know, party leader is for it? Who are you to be against it? And, you know, so if we were probably
Is it about party, Ken? Is it about party or the people?
at this level, it is about party. Because remember, even the role of parliament
But they're saying they're representing us, Ken.
No, forget about that. At this level, even the role of parliament is very ceremonial. They don't have to vote. Whether they say yes,
Or not.
we are expecting around 176 from the National Assembly and 34 senators
Senate.
to vote. Whether they say yes or no, the ultimate vote is with the people. And so the parties want to use this particular, you know, stance because this is really drama, is optics for us to see how the next
side of the
stages,
coin you
yes, and then the next stages of BBI are going to be rushed because from here it goes to the president, then it goes to IBC, and then we go for the referendum for the people. And in between that, there is also going to be campaigns. So people also people are also looking at positioning themselves for 2022. And you cannot position yourself as an independent candidate now using the BBI, particularly if you look at the gains of the BBI that also political parties have. So that's really what I see, which probably you're calling seeing the light, like Saul to Paul, right? To be able to change your minds and then change your vote. But then the consequences are much more dire for, say, for instance, Jubilee people who vote no, as opposed to people who have ascribed themselves to the DP, who ultimately remain consistent to the rallying call around we are against BBI and continue to vote like that. The consequences are much more lesser if you say you are Tanga and you vote no, as opposed to if you are, say, Kieleweke and you vote no, and the vice versa is the same. That if you ultimately look at how the politics of 2022 and party politics will play, then when you get to the point where the speaker says you have to come and stand at the microphone and cast your vote, you look at what do I lose? And then you say, I think I'll be much more stronger in my constituency through the party, which is Kieleweke for Jubilee people, if I say yes than if I say no.
Nurdin, let me bring you into this conversation. And let me ask you, the Deputy President said not once or twice that we need more amendments to the BBI bill. Now we are voting for it. And like Ken is saying, it's so ceremonial. From here, it's just a referendum, straight. Even if they don't vote or they vote, it will go straight to a referendum. As much as we'd want to say that they are not voting for Kenyans and their yes or no is not for Kenyans, we are looking at a referendum. Which side of the coin do you think Wanjiku is?
You know, right now, if you talk to the Kenyan, they'll tell you they have more pressing issues. Some people have been retrenched, courtesy of COVID. Some people have been displaced, courtesy of the demolitions we've been seeing around. Some people are hungry. Some people don't know how they'll take their children to school come next week. So they have more pressing issues. Right now, buying groceries is a luxury. It's like buying a Mercedes S-Class. That's how hard life is. And you see the members of parliament we have, they forget their most fundamental duty is legislation. I wonder where they were when the Finance Bill 2020 was being passed. That put LPG at 16% VAT. We wonder where they were. You see, the sad reality is that
that will go back to Kenyan chucking more.
You see, the sad reality is that people say I'm voting for my people. They name the constituency, but do they really care what the Kenyan wants? Because at the end of the day, we have more pressing issues. Right now, yesterday we reported, and the Indian variant.
5 cases.
What have we done to protect the people from that? The same vaccines that we had from day one are the ones we have in. Right now we are being told the second vaccine might be different. This is a country that is talking about a document that can actually wait, and a virus that is there right now, we are being told this virus, just relax. Let us pass the BBI first, itakuwa sawa. It is sad because we have misplaced priorities. That is the problem with Kenya. Our leadership is upside down.
I'm sure Ken will not agree with you.
you see, it's more, we lack selfless, patriotic, visionary leadership. You see, the problems, he mentioned the 9 problems. He didn't say the real issue. The 9 problems we have are courtesy of the leadership in Kenya. Because if you want to talk about tribalism, it is the leaders, not the Kenyan. Because right now, Otieno and Kamau will watch a game
together
of Champions League. Laugh, go home.
Yeah,
but
Arsenal is playing today versus...
But come election, or they remind you that you are Luo, or that you are Luya, that you are Kamba. And I like the president because he acknowledged, he said the other day in Bomas, he said that they are the orchestrators of tribalism. You know, it's the medieval kind of politics.
If they are the creators of the tribal politics, should we have this BBI in the first place, Maureen?
If I may go back to what I said earlier on, for me, BBI at this point is unnecessary. And allow me to disagree a little bit with my brother Ken, who said that the members of parliament are voting BBI. Some of them are voting yes and no based on the party. I tend to disagree because we are seeing a number of, some of the members of parliament affiliated to the Tanga movement are actually voting yes. Whereas, it's not like our deputy president was for no. He didn't say no. Let me also correct my brother Ken. Our deputy president, during the Bomas launch of the BBI process, the BBI document, called for a consensus. He actually called for a consensus.
He didn't say no.
He didn't say no.
He's for it.
He didn't say
They've been
yes.
saying he's for it.
No. He's not. He's not for it. We don't know if he's for. Okay, for me, my stand would be.
He
this.
has. You see,
He's
you see,
playing
Maureen,
watermelon.
If somebody,
No.
if somebody cannot clearly, like Babo or the president, stand here and tell us, "I am for the document." If you keep dilly-dallying, you're for it.
But you see,
just tell us you're for it.
But you see, my dear, this is not dilly-dallying. This is a case scenario of good and bad. Like I said earlier on, BBI is not necessary for now, but under the same Building Bridges initiative, which was a good process in the beginning, has pros and cons. Just like anything in this world has its pros and cons. I think the deputy president could be looking at the future, could be looking at the bigger picture of what if we're talking of Building Bridges initiative and we still have some Kenyans who will feel not satisfied at the end of the BBI process? What happens? So I think for him, he was looking at a consensus in terms that what is good, let's keep it. What is being disagreed by the majority of Kenyans, or what is not good, let's find a way of dealing with it to make
Maureen,
it more.
Don't you think the deputy president was playing his cards? And remember, he said we should have the referendum together with the general elections. Don't you think he wanted all these changes so that we can wait until 2022?
I don't think so. In my view, I think he was looking in terms of priority. And if we hold, you remember his words very well. He said, for now, what is pressing is COVID-19 issue. Can we deal with it first? Then save resources. If we go into a referendum right now for Kenyans to vote yes or no, and the whole BBI process has been expensive so far and a burden on the common mananchi in terms of the taxpayer, we're now looking at an instance whereby if we go for a referendum, we have a bigger budget. And then we have another election coming up in less than,
our budget is still
2
bigger,
years.
so it will be accommodated. Ken,
Wouldn't we, okay, allow me to say, wouldn't we
Yes.
have accommodated that budget into fighting COVID instead? And then look at the consensus and wait for 2022, which is also a good idea, then put the referendum in terms of multiple choices, and then, which is now a consensus, and then have the general election, which will be saving on resources, because we're talking about the same process. We're talking about a Kenyan waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning, 6 a.m. in the morning to go and cast their votes.
And don't you think, and taking this question to Ken, I know he will support, I know Ken will support this,
No,
but
Fred, ask the question first.
I'm thinking, I think things should have gone to Maureen, that we are looking at an election, and like Ken said, the issues that we've faced in this country over and over again, we are supposed to solve them before an election. Why shouldn't we solve them now? Why are we waiting until 2022?
All right, if we're looking at solving these issues, why don't we then come up with a document that is all-inclusive, a document that is fair to all, fair to Wanjiko, fair to the common man? For instance, if you look at the same parliament that is today voting yes or no for the BBI document, under the Article 256 and 257 of the Kenyan Constitution, they are left with very little room for them to do anything substantive with regards to constitutional matters or constitutional amendment or a referendum. So for them, basically, it's a yay or nay situation, which at the end of the day looks like a conveyor belt. Yeah, it's like a propeller to now take it to the next level. And then if Parliament now is a conveyor belt, we're now looking at an instance whereby now the document will be thrown into the common mwananchi to now decide. And in a referendum process, of course. And for me, I would feel like now it has come a time where Kenyans have to stand up and do that which is right. Kenyans have to now stand up and now protect their country, protect their welfare, protect their future, protect the future of their children by voting no when it comes to the referendum. That is, if Parliament...
This is a politician, total politician.
She's running for office.
Of course. Ken,
yes, please.
there are some clauses that even some members of ODM have said they are illegal. Now, we are taking this referendum to Wanjiko. It's definitely going to be a yes or a no. What are we telling Kenyans? What are we telling Kenyans? That we can have a country, that we can pass laws illegally and it's okay, and because we don't have a choice when it comes to us, we'll say yes or no? Shouldn't we have what Deputy President was saying? Questions per questions. This, I agree with this, I disagree with this. Shouldn't we have that?
That, Fred, has already been dealt with through the amendment, the Constitutional Amendment Bill. Remember, the articles that my good friend Maureen is referring to, subject the amendment of the constitution to only two ways. There can only be two processes. Why parliamentarians have no business even in the kind of vote that they are having right now is because this is a popular initiative. Had we had a parliamentary process, then they would have had a very strong say, and in fact Wanjiku would have felt represented by the people they put in office. But because Mheshimiwa Raila and Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta, at the level of constitution amendment 256 of the constitution, exercised their role as citizens to propose an amendment to the constitution, which you can do, she can do, my good friend can do, I can do, any Kenyan, as long as you go to IEBC and you propose these issues and you say, I have collected 1 million signatures, and then you are given an opportunity. To the question and why I believe those issues have been dealt with is because, number two, there are only specific clauses which are called protected clauses in the constitution which you can subject Kenyans to a referendum upon. Now, these are issues which live beyond COVID-19. These are issues which live beyond the poverty that Kenyans are actually going through. And if you look at
what's urgent, and I understand where these two are coming from.
I agree, but you see, there is never a right or wrong time to amend a constitution. For instance, if you are in a school where your child says, mami kila siku mimi nachapwa tu na mwalimu, and then you tell this kid, hey, you just wait, you only have a few weeks to sit your exam and then you will quit, What if this kid is properly beaten and never gets to have the privilege and the opportunity to sit for exam? What you do is you go back to the issues around disciplinary in the school. Do you have mechanisms to have guidance and counseling? What do you do when what's the role of parents in the school when you have errant children? There are questions which you begin to ask. Because I don't want to get into how government has dealt with COVID-19, because our government, despite the theft that we have seen and the irresponsible behavior of our politicians, there are things that the president has proposed in his economic stimulus package which worked very well in the first case of COVID.
That was last year, not this year, though.
And I'm coming to that. Money was stolen. What Kenyans have not done...
He gave us 21 days.
Yes, what we have failed to do is to go and ask those difficult questions. Instead, we have joined the politicians in the bandwagon of BBI is not a priority, BBI is this, BBI is that. But if we were able to organize ourselves as Kenyans, the way we spend a lot of time on Twitter and what do we do after we tweet and it trends and it lasts for 4 days, even if it is 24 hours. Beyond that, there is nothing much. So whether it's right or wrong because of our priorities, there is never a right or wrong time to amend a constitution. In fact, for us as Kenyans, as Maureen said, when we audit the constitution and we look at the pros and the cons, we cannot now stop saying the pros are working, so let's stop on the cons. This is our first amendment of the constitution since its promulgation on was it 28th August 2010?
Yeah.
And so we are doing this to safeguard that future generation. And if you move beyond the amendment bill and begin to look at the good things that BBI is bringing, no one is talking about them, but it's because we have given the responsibility of drumming support or failure of the document to the political class.
Nordin.
Yeah.
Should we have amended this constitution after now 11 years? Was it necessary to amend it right now?
You see, when the constitution was being passed in 2010, there were issues that were not okay. So people say, let it pass.
Yeah, I remember it was 80% was
yes.
good, 20% was... So let's pass it.
We shall revisit later.
From where I sit, what is the urgency? Because this is a country where court orders are never followed. Observance of the constitution is next to nil. So right now you want to amend something that you don't subscribe to, something that you don't follow. People don't understand the meaning or the strength of the oath they take for office. Like right now, members of parliament, they're there, they're voting. If you ask them, read this oath of office, do you know what this means? When you're being sworn in with a constitution, and you say you will protect, serve, and uphold the constitution. If you don't, that means you should be out of office. People don't understand that. Now we have a scenario where the constitution of Kenya has not been upheld, it hasn't been protected, and people violate it. But now they say, you know what, it's hard to amend, let us amend this thing. It's like you have a child and then you are unable to take him or her to school because you don't have school fees, but you say, let me solve this by getting another child. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It is misplaced priorities. We are a country where we are meant to mark 58 years of independence in 2021, but still facing the three most important diseases in Kenya. That is ignorance, poverty, and diseases.
1963.
And then you dare say, listen, you dare say that, you know what, BBI is a way to prosperity. We need to change our software. The political class needs to change, because if they don't change, the same document, once it becomes law, will never be followed. And that's how these things are. You see, they are the same monkeys, different forests. Now, they're jumping from one party to a new party, one alliance to another alliance. What the BBI is meant to do is meant to do two things. It is meant to bring about BBI billionaires. You know, everything in Kenya is a scandal in the waiting, and it's meant to bring about political formations. Why she was at pains to answer the deputy president question on taking the no stand is because from where he sits.
There are advantages.
Let me tell you something. From where he sits, he's been boxed into a corner to lead the no campaign. Do you know why? Because for any contest, you need to legitimize it. So if he leads the no campaign, they legitimize the campaign, that is the BBI process, the referendum. So he looks at this thing and asks himself, if
we have less than minutes, so I'll give you 30 seconds to close.
So he looks at it and he's like, if I go into this and focus on this, I deplete my war chest that is meant for 2022. And that is the game plan. And then you're going to be at crossroads with your boss. What kind of deputy president are you going to be?
Closing remarks. We have seen and we know they are going to vote. Of course, the majority is going to carry the day. That we know by now. But we are looking at 2022. Do you think we are going to have a referendum this year?
In my opinion, I would rather say no. We wouldn't have a referendum this year. However, I'd like the parliamentarians to also bear in mind and remember that the same document they're voting for today has removed their powers for vetting the executive. What does this mean? This means that the executive now has imperial powers. And come an instance, an unforeseen instance whereby...
I know you'd want to continue with this, but I've given you 30 seconds, Ken, 30 seconds, your closing remarks. Now, is it necessary we have a referendum this year? We have COVID-19? Yes or no?
Yes.
Why?
The process has already, as they say, from the political level, the train has left the station. And Kenyans will have to arise from our comfort zones to take over the power. Remember, our sovereign, Article 1 of the Constitution gives sovereign power to the people. We have surrendered this by sending people to represent us. We need to sit back where you are watching us from at home, including my family members, Natalie and team. Ask Mami, what is your role in making this country a better place?
Thank you very much. We close with that. What is your role as a person, as an individual, in making this country better? The trouble with the government is that it talks too much, acts too slow, and does too little, doesn't it? What the country needs instead is not more laws, but more good men in public service. By Rodrigo Duterte. All right, and I will tell you this, the views by these great people are not those views of this station, Switch TV, but individual views. Thank you so very much for coming in. Nurdin, my friend, Ken, and Maureen. Thank you for having time for Switch TV. Until next week, my name is Frederick Muitiriri. I'm being told that voting will close in 10 minutes, so unfortunately, I would have wished to tell you the outcome, but I know you'll be following that. Have yourself a good night.